Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at foodafan.com.
You know, episode 25 now. That's, I'm always surprised. Every time, every week I say a number that's one higher than the last week. And it just always gets to me. It's like, wow, we're in 25. Holy crap. But yeah, I'm so happy to be talking to you, Jacob. This is, I think, the second day of the year of the ox. It was pretty good. On the actual day, which was a Friday, we had a lot of people out of office in Japan because Thursday was a holiday. So a lot of people took this Friday off anyways. And, even though it's not a national celebration in Japan, I don't think it's even culturally celebrated. So, it was a rare moment when I didn't really have to do work in on the Lunar New Year. But, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, it was the same in my office. As you said, many Japanese people were off because it was the day after the national holiday, and I work with a lot of people in Hong Kong and mainland China, and they were all off, of course. So it was pretty lonely on Teams.
But Jacob, we spoke last time. I think it was on like a Friday night, actually.
Yeah. And,
very rare for me to not see you between episodes, because usually we will see each other on a Wednesday, because that's when you go into the office.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss, next episode we want to do this, what we want to say. But I haven't actually seen you since we last talked.
Right.
Because on Saturday morning, I decided that I was going to go eat sushi at the fish market. And so woke up at, 4:30, which is very, very early for me, but not very early for you.
Sure.
We went to the fish market. I mean, Akane and I.
Yeah.
And I texted you. I said, I hate waking up so early in the morning, because I knew you were already awake.
Yeah.
So you texted me back. You said, "Isn't it wonderful?" And I said, "No, it's dark. You can't see anything." And you said, "Well, it's glorious." And then a few hours later, you sent me this picture.
Yeah.
And it's just of a cast.
Yes.
So, listeners to both this and the Pen Addict podcast will know that the Pen Addict broke his arm a few months ago. And right after he had his arm heal, you broke your arm.
That's true. Yeah, so... Yes, it was that Saturday morning, the morning after we recorded the podcast. I went out running, as I used to do in the morning. But I tripped when I ran, and I fell in a really bad way on a particularly hard concrete road with like outstretched arms. And I got what's called a radial head fracture on my left arm, which is my main arm, as you know. So I've had my left arm now in a long arm cast for the last 2 weeks. And I went to the doctor again yesterday. He said another 2 weeks, possibly, if you're lucky, just one more week, because it's healing faster than expected. So that's good. And also, what's also good is that I don't need surgery. So normally when you have this radial head fracture, sometimes the part that comes off can move a bit, and if it does move, then you need to do surgery. And if you need to do surgery, then the whole thing takes longer. But fortunately for me, I did not need to do surgery, so I'm more than halfway through this now.
So Jacob, this is why you don't go running in the dark. You can't see anything.
Yeah, but it's nice to see the sunrise, but when you're done, so.
All right, we are all hoping for your swift recovery, Jacob. We've talked about this, but as you said, in your dominant arm, can you still write though?
Well, it it doesn't hurt when I move my my hand. I mean, it's not like, I think Brad Dowd, he hurt his wrist, so I think it probably hurts. But when he moves his hand, it doesn't do that for me. But the problem for me is that the cast gets in the way, right? So I usually rest the pen like in the palm of the hand, right? And I can't do that because I have this cast in the way. So that's the problem. So I'm holding my hand as if I'm constantly shaking hands with people, right? So it also means that when I'm typing on the keyboard, I'm using my right arm and I'm using one finger on my left arm. So I have been a bit slower at work for the last 2 weeks.
All right. And as I know, you still had to go into the office some days, right?
I still had to work on Sundays. Yes, we had some weekend exercises I had to participate in. But fortunately, I have not had to work in the office on a weekday. So in a way, this is the first time that something positive has come out of the pandemic. Because as you know, I'm working for a very traditional, very conservative, like Japanese megacorp, and I can't imagine that if this was not a pandemic, I can't imagine that they would have let me work from home.
You know, that's so funny because I noticed that I think there are more people out on the weekends in the metro. So it's so funny that they make you go in on the weekend rather than the weekday.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyways, it's our favorite time. Well, it's my favorite time. It's your least favorite time. It's time for a review. Let's read a review. Lens Pens via Apple Podcast from Germany. Lens Pens writes, very informative and entertaining. I cannot recommend this podcast enough. CY and Jacob always have something interesting. Oh, sorry. CY and Jacob always have some interesting stories to tell, products to review, and do such with granting a deeper look into the Japanese culture and fountain pen and stationery world. Together with the news from the market, they provide a very informative podcast which doesn't fail to entertain. An easy listen, and the content is great. This is actually the only podcast right now that I thoroughly enjoy. Nothing to criticize here. Great job, my dudes.
Wow, so, that's a very nice review. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Lens Pens. We really, really appreciate it. Normally it's me reading the review, and Jacob does not look at the reviews. No. He doesn't look at them on the text because he's a bit worried. So when Jacob hears this, it's actually the first time he hears the review, and this is his live reactions.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Maybe I can read another one. Heart Pen via Apple Podcasts from South Africa. They write, great in-depth info on Japanese pens. I really enjoy getting to know the Japanese pen and stationery scene through the informal chats with CY and Jacob and their super interesting guests. You should definitely follow and subscribe to this podcast. Well, thank you, Heart Pen. We really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And thanks to everybody who has spent the time to leave a review for us. As you know, this podcast is only possible because of you, and the kind of support that we get really, really serves as a fuel and as a motivator for us. So we're actually getting to 1 year, celebrating 1 year of Tokyo Inklings. I think the next episode will be the last episode, and then we'll have done 1 year, right?
Yeah, March. Something like that. I'm not sure exactly when we started, but it feels like it was around March, April.
Okay, maybe a few more episodes, maybe 2 or 3 more episodes. But we are on episode 25, so usually that would mean that this episode is 1 year's worth.
But I think we did every week for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then we shifted to bi-weekly.
Yeah. So yeah, actually we need 26 to have a full year. So next episode will be, fully 26 episodes. If we did a bi-weekly cadence, that would be 1 year's worth. But yeah, that's always humbling actually to think about. And we really appreciate when you give us a review or a rating. I think they say rate, review, subscribe. So please rate, review, subscribe, make it your Instagram story. When you listen to it, just tell people, hey, I'm enjoying this new podcast. And it's very likely that either you, your family, your friends, people are interested in the same things, and especially in the same social circle. A lot of times those interests congregate. So maybe they'll read your story and come to our podcast, and we would really, really appreciate that. So please, again, rate, review, subscribe, make your Instagram story, make a post about it, tweet about us, talk about us on your Facebook groups, talk about us on Reddit. Anything you can do to spread the word really, really helps us, and we really appreciate it.
And one thing I would add to that is that, at least for me, this first year has been really a chance for me to learn more about fountain pens in Japan. I mean, our listeners ask us questions that or at least I don't have the answer for. Like, what's the deal with the zoom nibs, for example? Right? So we are challenged to find answers to these questions, whether that means asking retailers or looking at these obscure Japanese blogs or asking other people, right? So that has been part of the fun for me.
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely, we're not really, I would say we probably know more than the average Western audience about Japanese pens, but we're not experts by any means, you know? Like, we are just hobbyists, just like you, but the difference is that we are obviously here, and that gives us the opportunity to go out and ask, and that's why we wanted to do this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so, despite a broken arm, despite a very busy few weeks for me, we've actually had, we have more acquisitions between these 2 weeks than I think we had in the previous, in this year combined.
To be fair, it's mostly you.
Okay, to be fair, it's mostly me. And to be fair, half of this was actually bought last year in like October or something. Right. So I'll just get right to it. I'll start with the stuff that I bought last year. So last year, through the Pen Addict Slack channel, I was alerted of a deal on a Conid. And this is a Conid regular. So for those of you who don't know, Conid is a company that's based out of Belgium. They're actually a sub company of some manufacturer, like high grade precision like manufacturing company. And they make very high quality and very, very expensive pens. And those pens are usually made out of things like Delrin, high grade acrylic, and titanium. So I think most of their furniture is made of titanium. And I was alerted to a deal that, there are several sizes. There's the Minimalistica, which is a slip-on cap. And that runs retail if you buy it with a steel nib for about $500. And then there's the so-called regular, which costs at retail about $700, I want to say. And then there's the king size, which costs about $1,000 at retail. And because
there's Conid also that extra long one, right? The
giraffe. Yes. The giraffe. I don't know how much that costs because that has literally never tempted me before. But yeah, it's quite a pen, and what Conid are infamous for, I would say, is their long wait times. And now, because of COVID, they've actually stopped. Well, not because of COVID, because they had a huge back order. They had stopped manufacturing for a while, or they had continued manufacturing, but they stopped selling the pens on their websites. And then because of COVID, God, it's okay. COVID, because of COVID, Conid stopped producing pens
Right.
for quite some time last year. Okay, that was a very difficult sentence to say. So, as a result, the market prices of these have just absolutely skyrocketed. People are, selling minimalisticas for what, $800, $900. So, when I saw this advertisement on Reddit for $500 for the Conid regular, that's a great deal. Conid is able to hold their value very, very well. So I got it, and I had it sent to one of our friends in the US, and then finally it's made its way to Japan here. So my impressions of this pen is that it's a very, very solid pen. It's a very solid pen. I mean, I have it in my hands right now, and my first impression is that the plastic, actually, this clear plastic, feels very nice. It feels nicer than the other plastics that I have. Like I have a Moonman here too. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's the way they polish it or they finish it. It feels kind of warm to touch, almost like lacquer, but not really. But the plastic is very nice. The section on the model that I have is, I believe, Delrin, so that's the same material as a Lamy 2000, and it's concaved. So I think you'll like it, Jacob. This pen might be a little bit small for your liking. I know you like big pens. But it's a pretty decent size. It's just maybe a bit slimmer than you would like, but it's I think it's quite comfortable. The only thing that I didn't like about this pen when I was buying it, actually, two things. The first is their logo. I think their logo is really ugly, but on the regular they have these two O-rings on the back, and I really didn't like these O-rings. So my plan was to remove the O-rings and fill it in with lacquer. But then I realized now that in order to disassemble the pen, you actually have to go. It's hidden under the O-rings, actually, the screw for disassembly. So if I lacquer it, then I'll never be able to disassemble this pen. So I'm still thinking of what I can do with it. Now that I have the pen in my hands, one more thing bothers me about this pen, and that is that there's a clear acrylic barrel. There is the secondary ink view, same as the Realos. And then there is the threads. But the threads are between the secondary ink view and the main barrel. So that's not like the Realo. And what bothers me is that the ink view and the barrel, they're clear acrylic, but the threads are titanium. So you have this wonderfully streamlined pen, and then suddenly there is like a block of titanium.
Right. And
I think that kind of it breaks up the aesthetic of this pen. So that's, I would say, one thing that I think design wise they could have done a bit better, because I think if these were plastic threads, it would be just as good.
So I haven't seen your pen yet for reasons we explained earlier, but our friend Dan from New York visits Japan every once in a while, and he always brings a whole bunch of Conid pens. So I've had a look at them. In terms of size, I really like the king size Conid.
Yeah.
But you're right that they feel like they are sort of engineered more than they are designed. It's like an engineer's dream pen.
It's a very nice pen. And I had a music nib. I had a Bach music nib in here a while ago, but I've since changed it to one of the Wall Eversharp adjustables.
Sorry, this is a Bach normal Bach screw-in unit, like 200.
It's a Bach, Bach 250.
250, yeah.
And they've got that pin in there, right? So when I changed it to a music nib, I actually fit an ebonite feed on it, and I modified the ebonite feed so that it would also take that pin. Now, funny thing is that I don't have that nib unit in there anymore. So we've been talking about these Moonman pens, right? So the Moonman housing actually fits into the Conid.
Really?
Yeah. So I think it's confirmed that Moonman, the housing and the feed particularly is a different shape. So I don't think the feed is exactly interchangeable, but it's Bach threaded.
But that's curious because I remember when that Moonman, was it M800 released? That's Leonardo.
Yeah, they made a big deal out of Bach threading.
Well, they had one version with Bach nibs and then had another version with Moonman nibs. But I vaguely recall discussions about the threads not being the normal Bach threads because they wanted to use like Moonman housing, which seems different from what you're saying now. But you're saying that if you're getting in a Moonman pen now, you can unscrew the nib unit and you can screw it into not just a Conid, but any pen that takes a Bach 250 unit.
Well, that's the curious thing because I tried the same thing with my Eboya,
right?
And that didn't work. So I think the result is more research is needed.
Yeah.
In regards to this, but I think for my own purposes, it's really, really good. So I have a whole bunch of nibs that are in Bach units with ebonite feeds. So that's really awesome for me.
By the way, going back to what you said about Conid stopping production, I do remember that there was this blog post, I think almost a year ago now, where it's like pause to restart or something like that, when they were going to stop taking new orders, presumably start again, in a few months' time. I'm not sure if they said when they were going to start, but I think the question is, why haven't they restarted yet? So do you know anything about what the current state is and when they might restart the production?
I do actually, because I actually have another Conid on order, which I ordered more than a year ago. I ordered last year in January with Fontaplumo. And, I expected, and they told me that, they wouldn't get the pens in until at least May. I said, okay, that's fine. I'm a patient person. So, I've learned to be a patient person ever since moving to Japan. Anyways, in Japan you have to wait for everything. But anyways, so around May I was like, hey, we're in this pandemic. Do you have any updates? They're like, yeah, they haven't restarted. Fine. So in September I asked again, hey, you have any updates? They haven't. We expect them to get them soon. Okay, fine. In December I asked them again, hey, do you have any updates? We expect them to get them soon. So now it's 2021. They still have not gotten in the pen, so I actually do have another Conid on order, and it's been over a year. I'd be lying if I say I wasn't concerned, but we just have to wait. I'm sure Fontaplumo is a very reputable retailer. I'm sure they would get the pens to me.
Okay.
Yep. So the long story short, no. they are not yeah. All right, so next thing on the list is a Ford. So I got this Ford patent pen, which might not stay in my possession much longer, to be honest, but it's kind of a cool pen. It was a vintage that I bought off of Instagram. And what's interesting about this pen is that it's this special kind of, I would call it a vacuum filler, but you have to unscrew the barrel to access the filling system. And it's a huge pen. We don't exactly have so much time to go through all the details, but right. Ford patent pen, that's really, really it's a really awesome pen. It's huge. It's almost the same size. I think it is the same size as my 149. Oh, right. So that was awesome. I got a Visconti, Jacob.
The red one, right?
Yeah, I got the Visconti Chantyshire, and I got it in their I think it's their new in-house 18K gold nib, and I got it in a stub.
Okay.
This is the first Visconti that I bought new. Well, for myself, anyways. I bought Viscontis for other people before. And I've taken a huge liking to this pen, Jacob. This is a really nice pen. The capping mechanism, because of the way that I hold my pen, sometimes it hurts my fingers. But the pen itself is just very, very beautiful. It's got these red. It's a red kind of acrylic, I believe, with these swirls of white in it. And I think the body is a mix of resin and acrylic. And the nib, of course, came with baby's bottom. So, I think that's very characteristic of Visconti. But I was going to grant it anyway, so I don't really care. And now it's a nice, I would call it an OBB. It's very, very broad, and yeah, this is an awesome pen, Jacob. I really, really like it.
But I remember many years ago, and this was when the Pen Habit still did YouTube videos. There was this period when Visconti had a bad reputation for build quality, and I think the nibs in particular had problems. So that is all. That is in the past now.
No, the Visconti nibs were made by Bach in Palladium, and that was when it was really, really bad. And now it's in-house. I would say it's a bit better, but it's still hit or miss. The one I got had baby's bottom and it squealed. So I wouldn't say everything is fixed, but they're getting there. They're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I got this Molteni pen, and this Molteni pen, I got it from the same vendor, and when it arrived, I noticed that the piston is it doesn't close properly, and so I reached out to the retailer and I said, hey, it doesn't close properly, and apparently these pens are made by the same people at Leonardo. I had a chat with them yesterday, and they confirmed that in fact they had made this pen some years ago. Right. So I might send this back to them for repair. But otherwise it's a very, very beautiful pen, blue pen. It's the Molteni that is made of Oma celluloid, so the blue one is made of blue lucens, so that's very, very cool.
I think you need to step up your Instagram game again, because very few of these pens have shown up on your Instagram feed.
Yeah, I've been very busy for reasons that I'll tell the listeners next episode, so you got to tune in next episode if you want to know. But I also got this new system journal, and the system journal that I bought, the System Techo that I bought is a Gucci System Techo. And I don't know if these exist outside of Japan, actually. They might have been made for the Japanese market, but not all of them, but a lot of these luxury brands make System Techo for the Japanese market. And Gucci hasn't made any in a few years now. I think the last time they made it must have been in the Frida era, but 5-6 years ago. I really like it, and I got it on Mercari, and on Mercari, you can get anything. And I got it for a very, very good price, actually. I think I got it for about $50, so that's like half the price of a plotter, right? And they fit the M6 refills, so I'm using the Da Vinci refill, which is obviously Tomoe River. And that's been really, really awesome. It feels great to use. And the M6 it's my first time using M6. It's really small, so it's very good for me to take to work and take some quick notes. So I think I'm becoming an oyaji just like you, Jacob.
Well, the M6 size is perfect for ink swatches, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to get an M5, But let's see.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't have enough money to buy everything I want. But Jacob, so I've obviously spent a lot of time on these acquisitions. But you got something I would say that's probably more interesting than everything I just said.
Well, I got a pen back from Hiroko. Like a while back, I bought a Pelican pen from Mercari, and there was a crack in the cap, and I knew that when I was buying it because that was factored into the price. So I got it for a very good price. To be honest, at first I thought I was just gonna, use washi tape or whatever to keep it in place. But then I just sort of posed a challenge to Hiroko: is there what could you do with a cracked cap? Is there anything you could do with urushi to repair this? And for example, can you do a kintsugi, which we talked about before? And she said that kintsugi is probably not a good idea. She didn't think that would be suitable for pants. To be honest, I can't remember exactly what the reason was, but she didn't think kintsugi was the right approach. But then she thought she could wrap it in silk threads and then do urushi on top, and she thought that would stabilize the crack and prevent it from getting worse, and obviously also hide it. So that's what she did. So I got the pen back yesterday. So it has silk threads around the area where there was a crack, and then she did urushi on top, and then on top of the urushi she sprinkled green aluminum powder. And then the rest of the pen is the more traditional karanuri design, like black with some light and dark purple speckles, but a little bit of green too, which is an interesting combination.
Yeah, and then the caveat is, of course, she's not willing to do this for customers, right?
Not yet.
Did she put the word yet?
Well, so I asked her if the customer sees this and asks for this, well, what will you do? And she said that right now she won't be able to do that, but she said that that's possible in the future. And to be honest, this is also why I feel a little bit bad about getting these pens, because as we have told many customers recently, she's not really doing any kind of customization anymore, for all kinds of reasons. Meanwhile, we get customized pens from her, right? So I feel a little bit bad about that. On the other hand,
you get customized pens from her. Yeah. I don't.
On the other hand, those are the pens that eventually end up in her catalog of designs that the customers can request. So in a way, this expands her a la carte menu of urushi designs that she will offer.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where her business goes, because she's got a lot of orders in recently, and almost I think more than she can take. So I don't know how she's going to arrange that schedule in the future, but I definitely think she needs to do something to manage that queue.
Yeah.
Either hiring a customer service manager or something like that. I think definitely something needs to happen, because otherwise it's not really sustainable as a business.
And I think that is something that her existing customers are discovering too, because a few years ago, when she had far fewer orders and she was still figuring out how to do this, she was able to spend more time with each customer and discuss custom designs. And right now, because of the way her business works, she's just not able to do that unless she makes changes, right? So customers who in the past got all kinds of custom designs are at the moment not able to get that. But again, that could change in the future depending on in what direction she decides to evolve her business.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope that she's able to figure out soon. So that, I think that the main thing is just, we need to be clear about what she can and cannot do. And it's, there's no negative about saying, I can't do this. But it needs to be clear from the beginning and not afterwards. You definitely don't want to surprise the customer in that way.
Yeah. She's learning just like everyone else is learning how to expand the business. Yeah.
Exactly. Speaking of your exact pen, though, it's I actually like the way that the karanuri was done. I'm not sure I like the itomaki or the way that it's done, but I definitely have to see the pen because that's just so different from what she usually does. And then especially the colors, because the karanuri is like purple, right? And then the itomaki is green. So it's kind of like a contrasting color. It's kind of like a poison pen.
Yeah, and it was not obvious from might not be obvious from the photo I posted on Instagram yesterday. If you rotate the pen, it's like you get sort of glowing green underneath.
Yeah.
And so I want to show you this pen in person so you can see what I'm talking about. It's really unusual and interesting color combination.
Yeah, and Jacob, you might as well tell us what you asked for, because now we know what the pen actually looks like. What did you ask for?
Well, yeah, so yeah, she's willing to do all kinds of experiments with my pens, but she rarely listens to what I'm asking for. So, well, I did get the itomaki, but I asked for a design that would use like white rodden powder instead of like charcoal powder for ishime. And she thought that would be an interesting idea, but then she changed her mind and like, tada, here's your karanuri pen.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I always, we always talk about this behind the scenes, but whenever you send a pen to Hiroko, the question is always, I wonder what you're going to get back. All right. So today for the main topic, we didn't have a topic to talk about until a few days ago. And then on Wednesday, all of a sudden things like blew up and we had to change our show notes quite drastically. For people who are really deep into the Japanese fountain pen scene, you'll know that there's a magazine in Japan called Shumi no Bungubako, and we've talked about this magazine on this podcast a few times. Jacob, you and I, we were both in the magazine, I think 2 years ago. And all of a sudden on Wednesday morning, I started getting in my Japanese language feed saying, I hope that Shumi no Bungubako will survive. So I was like, what's going on? So you want to do us the honors of telling the story?
Sure, yeah. So I don't have the full details yet, but just like you, I found out about this on Twitter, and then a friend of ours sent us more links with a bit more details. But so this company behind Shumi no Bungubako called A Publishing, they are now in what's in English called civil rehabilitation, which is a kind of bankruptcy process, which is similar to Chapter 11 in the US, I believe. So the idea is you're not trying to liquidate the company, you're trying to restructure the company, look at the debt and see what you can do to make the company come back, stronger and healthier later.
Yep.
So that is what's going on right now, and that news spread like wildfire in the Japanese pen scene. And then I think the day after, 1 or 2 days after, there was another bit of news, which is that another company called Heritage, I believe.
Yep.
They had bought or signed a contract to take over Shumi no Bungubako as well as a few other magazines from A Publishing, which to me suggests that this magazine is profitable and it's worth keeping around. So as far as we can tell at the moment, it seems as if our beloved magazine is safe, is going to continue.
Yes, and on top of that, if you look at the new company Heritage, if you look at when they were founded last year in September. And from what I read, it seemed like this company was created to buy these magazines or the different titles from A Publishing. So, these things take time. So, I think actually if they were founded in September, that to me suggests that the company that's buying them, there was especially set up for this deal.
That's interesting. I didn't actually see that part, but that suggests that something has been going on for a while, and it's only now becoming public information.
Yeah, because I'm reading on their PR Times, and it says that they have it's through this investor, they have established a new company. It says 継続のために新設された会社となります。So to me that seems like it. And so it'll be a lifestyle magazine publishing company. And this probably has to do with the taxes. Probably that the investor wants to buy these magazines even if they aren't like fully profitable, in order to reduce their taxes.
Well, it might also be that they think they can achieve some operational efficiencies that a big old company might be slower to adopt, right? So I'm sure that a company like A Publishing that's been around for a while has a big cost base, and they are trying to keep around magazines that might not be doing well and have been trying for a while. And also, as one of the articles said, A Publishing has done other things in the past. I think they had some store or cafe somewhere in Shibuya. I'm sure they have lost money on other ventures. So I think what this new company is going to do is to take the most promising parts and try to run that in a more efficient way. So apparently one of the magazine industry, worldwide, but also in Japan, has been on a decline for a while, right? Because advertising. And on top of that, you have now the pandemics. Fewer people are, going in the stores and buying, and also there's less advertising spending on top of the existing decline.
Yeah, and I think it just must hurt so much for A Publishing, because looking at the list of magazines, this must have been their most profitable stuff. So in the end, they're keeping the titles that aren't as profitable, right? And that must really, really hurt. I think for Shimune Bungubako, the sales will be fine, but it'll be interesting to see if they take the magazine in any kind of new direction, because for the past, I would say, few years, a lot of the magazine was just basically a book of ads, right? For different retailers. So it would be the same pens all the time, but just, a different copy.
That is definitely true. If you look at the recent issues, they are like product catalogs. Here are the new pens that have been released with beautiful photography, and then every second page is an ad from some of the retailers. So they seem to have quite a few ads. And then they also have an interview with Betchori or some of the other Inkinuma celebrities. But every once in a while, even fairly recently, they've had this really interesting in-depth articles. So for example, they have on a few occasions taken a lot of popular inks and measured both viscosity and surface tension and made this really impressive chart that really shows the difference between the Sailor inks and up to the Pelican inks. That's really been why I have bought the magazines in the past, for these articles.
Yeah, but there's also been History of Pelican, for example, History of Mont Blanc, but they're all written by Fujisan.
Yeah, maybe.
And I just wonder how many times you can do History of Pelican until you can't anymore. It's pretty much the same contents, right? So they have this from different contributors, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see if they shift their contents.
They also have their online store. There's the Shumi Bungabaku Club, I think it's called, and so you can go to their online store and you can buy their exclusive sailor pens and some Ashford system techos and some other products. I'm sure they're making some money that way too.
Yeah. So what's your analysis on obviously you said it's probably the most profitable and the reconstruction and things like that, but what's your take on their bankruptcy? Are you surprised?
To be honest, this is not an industry I'm that familiar with. If anything, I think you are more aware of how things work in advertising and retail spending and so on. So I don't actually know.
I think from my point of view, I'm not surprised that A Publishing has gone bankrupt. For me, as with most companies, you have these AAA titles, you have these AAA titles that are profitable, and then you have a bunch of titles that aren't very profitable, but you still want to try them out. And I think A Publishing as a company had just too many titles in their roster that wasn't sustainable, and a big part of their business for the other magazines were retail stores buying them and then putting them as a coffee book. So I'm talking about things like Preppy and Men's Preppy.
Yeah.
Of course, like they're fashion magazines and people buy them, but a lot of retail stores also buy them, and then they set them down so when the customer takes a seat, they can read these books.
Yeah, those are the kind of magazines also that you read when you get a haircut.
Yeah, exactly. But as we know, people haven't been going out, so they've been really, really hard hit. What's different about Shumi no Bunkabako is that Shumi no Bunkabako is so niche that there are people who go out and buy every single episode or every single release.
Yeah, every
in order to collect them all. And this isn't something that's just in Japan. So Men's Preppy, I would imagine that that's primarily a Japan focused release. But Shumi no Bunkabako is bought by people all over the world because, and as Jacob, you said, beautiful photography. And if you don't read Japanese, then the ads aren't ads. They're just, they're just a catalog book. So I think Shumi no Bunkabako in that way was very special.
Yeah.
Within the roster. Actually, I've said this a couple times, but right now I'm working at a large retail company, and one of my store managers that I work with, he used to work at Mont Blanc, so he used to read Shumi no Bunkabako, and he still does, but in an unofficial capacity. And when we were published on Shumi no Bunkabako, he came to me. He's like, "Hey, I saw you on Shumi no Bunkabako. That's really, really cool." So yeah, those are the kinds of people who are buying Shumi no Bunkabako. So, on one hand, I'm quite surprised that A Publishing was willing to let it go, because it's so special, so different, and it was such a star in their roster. But I guess things really, really got bad. And if I were A Publishing, I mean, if I had to give them advice, I think they moved a bit too slowly in the pandemic, and as a result, they had to give up one of their their evergreen magazines.
Yeah. Another reason why Shumi no Bunkabako are known and popular outside Japan is that they occasionally release these special editions. So I think last year they had this big ink catalog. And I know that you can buy that in many stores, or not many, but in stores outside Japan. So for example, like a Yoseka Station in the US, like New York, I think, that they're selling that one.
Yeah, so this has been a big shock to the Japanese fountain pen scene. I went to Maruzen a few days ago, and they actually told me that they're having difficulties restocking Shumi no Bungabako because exactly as the article reads, they're pretty much bankrupt. So they haven't been printing old volumes as well. So hopefully, I'm trying to get a bunch of the volume 50, the one that we are on, so that maybe I can use it in our if we start a Patreon. I think that could be a Patreon tier if we sign the books and have these rare Shumi no Bungabako.
I've only bought 2 issues, paper copies of them. The rest I bought as Kindle online editions. Yeah, that works pretty well too.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's A publishing.
Yeah.
Pretty big news in Japan. The next topic, let's go on to some news because we had a bunch more news oriented stories. But because we're running out of time, the most important ones I think that you've really highlighted here, Usagiya, Platinum, and this new Nagasawa. So let's go with Usagiya first.
Yeah, so I think we have talked about Usagiya a few times. It's this retailer in Okayama, and they are somewhat known for hard to get sailor pants, a little bit like Kobayashi. Like even for us in Japan, up until fairly recently, you actually had to go there and like buy pens in the brick and mortar stores. And even now, when they do sell online, they usually have just small quantities online. And so the best chance to get a pen is to actually go there and buy in the brick and mortar store. And they are now celebrating 70 years, or technically it's their parent company, like Kurabun, I think, are celebrating 70 years. So they have released an anniversary, or actually 2 anniversary pens, 2 pilot capless pens. And they are they're open for pre-orders on the February 6th. And then it was going to be on sale from March. But as far as I can tell, it's sold out from pre-orders in a matter of hours. And this is even though they only allow 1 pen per customer, presumably to deter scalpers. And I think they had a bit over 200 pens in total, and it's sold out in hours.
Yeah, and 1 pen per customer, but that's not 1 pen per color per customer.
Exactly.
It's 1 pen per customer.
Yeah, you had to choose which color you wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. What? So these like caplesses with gradients are quite coveted.
Yeah.
And we got I got one color and you got the other.
Yeah.
So we'll have pictures of them soon, but it's interesting that they chose the capless. There aren't so many store exclusive caplesses out there.
Yeah, and there aren't that many store exclusive pilots in general, right? And we have talked about before how Pilot is only okay to do these collaborations, when good retailers celebrate major anniversaries, and this is probably what happened here. And I'm not sure why they choose capless, but I'm glad they did. It looks a bit similar to capless Wish that we talked about in a recent episode.
Yep.
This retailer exclusive, a brick and mortar exclusive pilot capless that's been incredibly popular. This one looks quite similar. So you have this gradient from sort of white to dark blue to kind of copper orange, I would say. Well, it's a bit hard to tell because the photos aren't the best, but that's kind of what it looks like from the photos. Yeah. But then the 2 versions are like rhodium and like black matte. So the rhodium one is called like shiratsuki, I think, and then this matte black is called like oborotsuki.
Yeah, and I think they're actually, I don't know how I feel about the pens themselves, but that they did it is very, very cool. It's not a pilot aesthetic.
Right.
But I like it. I like what's happening with the caplesses now. Pilot has been okay to customize the capless, but I wish they would bring it to their other pens now.
There are actually two things about this pen, or these two pens, that interest me. One is that it has what they call garasfrek toso, so some kind of glass flake coating. I don't know what that means, and I can't tell from the photo what that means, but maybe that means there's some kind of
are there some powder? Sparkles? Yeah, maybe that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to take photos of this and see what is glass flake.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob. Isn't glass like made from sand?
Am I supposed to know that? I don't know.
Well, I've been watching Blown Away on Netflix, which is about glass blowing. I think they said glass is made of sand. So if you have like very, very small glass particles, wouldn't that just be sand?
Maybe. Yeah, we have to see what it looks like. But what I'm hoping is that there is some like sparkles that you can't tell from Usagi's own photos.
Yeah, so they ship in March, so we'll see in a few weeks.
Just one more little thing that interests me about these pens is that at least in Japan, most of these interesting special editions, limited edition caplesses, they only come in fine or medium. But this one is available in broad nib as well.
Yeah. Next pen we have Platinum. So Platinum, obviously, I think it's one of the first Japanese pens that really how should I say, hit the speculative market. And this pen is the Kompu, right? So the first they came out with Shungyo, which was very awesome, and people loved Shungyo, and then they came out with Kompu, and Kompu was very, very like wildly popular, and I mean the barrel is beautiful. The barrel is honestly beautiful, but the pen itself is wildly popular. It's been selling for like $700, where it retailed for like $200. And I think this really began the boom, like the speculative boom for platinum pens. They started doing some more wild things with the barrels. I'd say Rocca was this kind of cool like hexagonal design.
Yeah, it was called like lens cut or something like that. There was some fancy production technique that apparently added to the cost.
It looked like Kiriko. Looked like Kiriko glass. That was really, really cool. And then last year they came out with the purple one. What was it called? Shion, yeah. So everybody thought, wow, that's like a purple version of the Rocca. It's gonna sell immediately. It was the color is beautiful. They chose purple. Purple's really popular. These are gonna sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
So because the Rocca, obviously they performed very, very well. It was sold out long before its release. Actually, people were like, okay, Rocca. Shion. So Shion was released with a price increase, with less interesting nibs, and it didn't sell well, Jacob.
Yeah, I don't have actual sales numbers, but one data point is, or one thing I've noticed is that you have both Shion and still Rocca available on the second-hand markets here, but you find far more Shions, and more interestingly, many of the Shions that they sell on second-hand on Mercari, they are sold below their retail price.
Yeah, and not only on the secondary market, but you can still find them on the primary market. You can find them at retailers. And I asked Madison, I said, hey, so I guess the Shion wasn't very popular. And they told me that because basically of how popular the Noka was. When the Shion came out, they all got really excited. So the buyers at Maruzen decided to place huge quantities for the Shion. And oops, right? Like when it actually got to the store, nobody wanted the pens. So I think we mentioned price increase as one of the factors, but in my opinion, the Shion is a less compelling pen because of the body design. So when I see the new pen for this year, and I guess the release window will be around July, just as they have been in the past years, I just wonder if Platinum learned from their mistakes with Shion.
Do we know anything about the nib options and prices yet?
No, we do not, but I don't expect it to be cheaper than the Shion. Because they've gone once again with this full body, like concave-ish design, and that would be like the third year in a row. Orange, I would argue, is a less strong color. Just all around, it's like they've run out of steam in terms of how to customize that body or that barrel, and probably not in terms of design, but also maybe in terms of cost, like how to keep it cost efficient. So
yeah, I was thinking about that too. Given that they have done this for a while, and maybe they have managed to lower the production cost for this particular type of body design.
This orange color pen, what do you think about it?
I don't have the photo in front of me now, but I vaguely recall that it was red with gold, or red orange with the gold trims, right?
Yeah, with gold trims.
And I can see why gold trims might be suitable for that body color, but I also know, we are both like helping people outside Japan buy pens, and a very common opinion is, especially from people in the US but also Europe, is that they want rhodium trims.
Yeah, they all want rhodium trims. I think gold trim does work with this particular pen. It's always the case with these concave pens. Really have to see it in person. Otherwise, it's really difficult to tell. But I think, as you said, it all will depend on the price eventually.
It will depend on the price, and at least in Japan, it will depend on whether there's an SM nib option.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think so. So that's the Platinum's new pen. And then Nagasawa also came out. I think this pen is way better looking.
I think the body, it looks like there's some translucency here. It reminds me a little bit about the new Sailor Shikiori pens. It also reminds me of certain Hachimonja and Pentanote pens. So that translucency and that color, I think it works really well. To me, the metal grip ruins it.
Yeah, the metal grip is actually not that bad, Jacob. But I see where you're coming from. I definitely know that metal grips are kind of like a deal breaker for a lot of people. The last one, the Ishimaru one that I had with the matte metal grip, that was actually more slippery than I had expected.
Oh, really?
But obviously we haven't seen each other, so you haven't gotten to try it out. But it's still, I don't know. The regular metal grips, actually, I have one on a Rialo. Doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the fingerprints that it leaves.
But with this pen, what bothers me also a bit is the price. So we talked in the last episode about the new Kyonoto pen, and I said that for a limited edition Sailor pen, like 4,000 yen seems somewhat reasonable compared to other recent releases. Here we have a pen that is another 10,000 yen, and I wonder if that's because of the metal section, but I think that's too much.
It is, yeah. It is because of the metal section, but I agree. It's a very expensive pen.
I think the color. What was the name of the color again? It was like Sumiyoshi Yamate like Jade Green, and I think this is also the name of one of their inks. I wonder if this is
I think so.
If they're gonna do more pens like this named after their inks, maybe they have already done that.
Yeah, they have. I think they've done the Blue Michael. It was a slim. They've done a few in the past, but always in very similar colors. Yeah. Oh, I just realized we forgot to mention the name of the platinum that we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
It's called the Kinshu.
Kinshu.
So when it releases, I guess we'll be talking more about this pen.
Yeah.
All right. So do you want to do Q&A?
Okay, let's do just one question.
All right. So because LensPen wrote such an awesome review for us, let's do her question. So LensPens asks, greetings to both of you from Germany. Thank you for your excellent podcast. I thoroughly enjoy it, and it's almost like vacation for me to listen to your new episodes. So thank you for your efforts. It's really appreciated. I know this may be a weird question, but for somebody who has not yet been to Japan, is there a pen, and maybe an ink too, that you could say is the epitome of Japan or Japanese fountain pens? I know this is probably a very subjective question, and I'm aware that the market there is huge. But if both of you would each have to pick just one pen, which would this be? Thank you and take care.
So I interpret this question as a sort of typical pen that people would buy. So my answer to this question is a black and gold platinum 3776 with a... hold on. A black and gold platinum 3776 with a medium nib that was bought at Takashimaya and it's gift wrapped.
Not a Pilot?
No, because I really think that this marketing that Platinum has in Japan about this slip and seal, I think is quite successful. And I remember reading somewhere that the 376 was not, if not the most best-selling, but one of the most best-selling gold nib pens in Japan. And you do see them a lot. And I think that's something that people outside Japan might not realize, because often you hear people talking about how Platinum 376 is underrated. I would not say that it's underrated in Japan, because even if you go to these like small stationery shops that has only like 2 or 3 different gold nib pens, you're almost always going to find a Platinum 376. You will most likely not find a Sailor. They are not nearly as common, I would say, but you're very likely to find Platinum 3776 black and gold, and you're often going to find this kit where you can test your own pens. I think it's a very popular pen. I think especially a very popular gift option.
Yeah, and I actually asked a retailer that I won't name here about it, and she said, well, because it's very cheap, so people like buying that pen for gifting. But okay, I see your point. I would have taken a Pilot because they're a bit more established, but I definitely see your point with the slip and seal. Of course, as you know, I just talked about the price as well. And I'm glad that you took that approach, because for me, this pen that I chose is a pen that not everybody has, but it symbolizes the craftsmanship and the techniques of pen making, and that is of course the Namiki Emperor.
Oh, I see.
And for the funsies of it, let's do the Namiki Emperor in Urushi, and they have different standard models. I think for me, the one that stands out to me the most is the Fukuro, which is the owl.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that the Fukuro or the owl is a iconic Japanese animal, but I think the techniques used in here, first of all, they have gold dust, right?
Right.
And so they have gold dust they have makie, which I think is takage makie, where it's a bit raised.
Right.
And they also have the very, very difficult technique of rankaku, which is eggshells.
Ah, yes.
So they have inlaying, they have overlaying, and then they have lacquer. The only thing I think they're missing from this is chinkin. It's a very beautiful pen, and I think this pen just symbolizes the craftsmanship of Japanese art. The pen is, there's so much detail in this pen. You can see even the eyeballs of these owls, and the owls are made of eggshells. So you have to pick up every single eggshell, and you have to put them in such a way that it becomes a design. And even the clip is lacquered, and it's the gradient matches the body of the pen. As you know, the urushi emperors, they're pretty much seamless, right? You can't see the seam, but it's actually an inkidome. So the bottom or the end of the pen actually unscrews and comes out. The nib is fantastic. It's Mount Fuji, and they've even taken special care to plate the mountaintop in rhodium so that it symbolizes snowy peaks. I think for me this is just this pen is. I mean, I don't own it, but it's a fantastic fantastic pen, and I think this is probably the height of Japanese pen artistry.
And in a way, it could also be thought of as a gift pen, except that it's a very different level of gift. So it's not something you get when you finish school, but it's sort of when you celebrate that you've sold your semiconductor business to Taiwan.
Yeah, so the news that I'll have for our listeners next week, I don't know if that's newsworthy of this kind of a gift, but I'll keep it in mind that you mentioned it's a gift pen, Jacob.
But one more thing about that pen that makes it a good option is that it's an inkidome eyedropper, right? And that harkens back to the early days of Japanese pen making. So,
and it's unique because in English this system is called Japanese eyedropper.
Yes.
All right, so I think that's the episode. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in and listening. We really, really appreciate you. I say this all the time, and I'll say it again, but we can't really do the podcast without the listeners. I've been just so humbled. We've grown a lot in the past year. More on that maybe in the next episode, but we've grown a lot. And we think that we can still keep growing. Few hundred episodes ago, I was listening to the Pen Addict, and they mentioned that they were on 5 figures. I don't think we have as broad of an appeal because we focus almost on fountain pens exclusively.
This is a very niche. This is a niche within a niche.
Yeah, but I definitely think there's still room for us to grow. Yeah. In terms of listenership and in terms of audience. So please do make a recommendation, make it your stories, make it a post. Talk about us on Facebook, talk about us on Reddit, talk about us on Twitter. Anywhere you can, actually. That really helps us out.
Yeah.
Jacob, any last words?
I think that's it. This is a slightly longer episode than usual, but we had a lot of content to cover, so I think it's hopefully a good episode. I hope people will enjoy it.
All right, and with that, that's been the episode. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. My name is CY. You can find me on tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm Furufan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at furufan.com.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.